Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. And first up, we're in the Tembe Elephant Park in Maputaland of the KwaZulu-Natal province of South Africa. My name is Ralph Kirsten. And what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down to have a drink, quench their thirsts, and cool off. Now, as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the Wild Earth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag Wild Earth. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. As we see these two elephant bulls just saying hello to each other. With a little warthog grazing in the background. I always love this waterhole. Lots of elephant activity. And of course, there's been a huge weather system moving through KwaZulu-Natal in the recent past, and there's been lots of flooding. And our thoughts do go out for everybody that's been affected in those parts of the country. It came right up the east coast. But the worst has been in KwaZulu-Natal. So you can see there's a little bit of rain still in the background, and it's quite dark and gloomy, and that's as a result of this big weather system with lots and lots of rain. So a couple of comments already coming through. Casper saying, happy Tuesday from Milwaukee. Thank you, Wild Earth and Ralph. Looking forward to a wonderful waterhole safari, and lovely to have you on board with us, Casper, all the way from Milwaukee. Wow. And Night Ritz saying hello from the Netherlands. Jeepers. So we've got the Europeans on board with us as well. Welcome aboard, Night Ritz. Joanne Mello saying good Tuesday, Wild Earth and Ralph. Absolutely, Joanne. Welcome aboard. As you see this elephant just doing a bit of a wheel spin. He's got lots of hair on his tail. You don't often see such a fluffy tail at the end of it. This guy's looking good. Can you hear a little chin spot batters calling? He's kicking this dirt around. I think that's what that little wheel spin was about. Trying to get this dirt and the soil loosened up. Of course, some little blue wax bills, that very high-pitched call. Sounds like a yellow-breasted apellis or apellis. There's a drongo flitting about in the background. The grey go-away bird also calling. In Afrikaans, the kweevoël, because of the call. Very descriptive of the Afrikaans names, because the grey go-away bird does a real kwee. That's why they call it a kwee bird, kweevoël. And Night Ritz from the Netherlands. I'm sure you'll understand that. A little bit of sun now poking through. And he's headed off into the shade. So Bundu Bash saying, hi Ralph, really enjoy your segments on Wild Earth. Well, that's good to hear, Bundu Bash, and glad we have you on board once again. We can only wonder what's going to be going on today at the waterholes. Lovely start with these elephants here in the Tembe Elephant Park. This bull seems to be a little bit restless, almost like showing signs that he is in must. Is he going to look for a fight with this tree? So I'm going to look out for this bull in the future because we can identify him by that really fluffy tail. We could call him Pom Pom. And he's also got quite tattered ears as this individual bull. Okay, I'm going to log out and log back in again. Okay. Okay, should I try logging out and logging back in?
Hello, hello, hello.
Right, so Theo was asking, do they rehabilitate elephants here? And Theo, not as far as I know, but according to the Wild Trust website, and they speak of the elephants of Tembe Elephant Park in northern Maputoland, KwaZulu-Natal, are part of the Maputi-Futi Tembe coastal elephant plains population, the only elephant population indigenous to KwaZulu-Natal. And this group of elephants roam freely into Mozambique from South Africa, Futi corridor, and into the Maputo Special Reserve. But a fence between Mozambique and South Africa along Tembe Elephant Park's boundary was erected in 1989 after the elephants moving began showing signs of severe trauma from the war going on in Mozambique, displaying bullet wounds and snare wounds from heavy poaching. And it was thought best to fence in the Tembe population, which in time grew to the now 250 to 270 elephants that are found in the 30,000 hectare reserve today. And this large population of elephants pose a number of challenges for conservation. Their numbers are too many for the area they occupy, and they're impacting on the biodiversity of the sensitive sand forest vegetation of Tembe Elephant Park, which forms part of the Maputoland Center of Plant Diversity and Endemism, as declared in 1994 by the Worldwide Fund for Nature and World Conservation Union. This distinctive forest type is known to be restricted to northern KwaZulu-Natal and southern Mozambique and has a unique combination of plant and animal species. Since the 1990s, Izimvelo KZN Wildlife have been working with the Mozambican government to re-establish the link between Tembe Elephant Park and the Maputo Special Reserve to restore the ancient migratory route of the elephants. And this forms part of the Greater Transfrontier Conservation Area plans for the region. This has been a slow process, and as a holding mechanism to relieve pressure on the sand forest and control elephant numbers growing further, Wildlands Conservation Trust has funded 2 management interventions in Tembe: a contraception program for the elephants, restraining line that has been put in place, protecting a 2,500 hectare area of sand forest. And look at that dark sky, the system that I was speaking of earlier. In May 2007, the first group of 82 female elephants was darted with a PZP contraception vaccine. The aim is to dart roughly 80 to 90% of the population in order to have 75% of the population on contraception. If a cow is already pregnant and is darted, the vaccine will not interfere with the pregnancy and the vaccine will not take any effect. In October 2007, a further 79 females were darted, and the process was repeated in October 2008 and October 2009. The slightly lower numbers needed to be darted in order to achieve a level of 75% of the population. With the gestation period of an elephant calf being around 22 months, many of the elephants darted may have been carrying and would not have been on contraception, but there are indications that there are now fewer calves. Tembe Elephant Monitor, and he tracks the breeding herds and gets identities for each animal, establishing the structure of the herd in order to establish when young are born. It will take a number of years before the full effect of the program is felt, which is why such close monitoring of the breeding herds is necessary. Trackers have been fitted to some of the elephant cows in order for breeding herds to be identified and monitored. Behavioral as well as habitat information is gathered this way. And the contraception program is not designed to decrease the number of elephants, but to control further growth in the population. Dr. Ruli Kloppers, manager of the Biodiversity Management Support Program for Wildlands Conservation Trust, said the work we funded in Tembe Elephant Park represents one of a series of pioneering and groundbreaking ecological interventions supported by the Trust. We aim to support the scientific community in developing new insights into elephant management that could be duplicated throughout the region. At this stage, the results are very encouraging, and the feedback we have received illustrates the value of supporting scientific input into advancing the management of biodiversity. Not only is the contraception program helping to manage elephant numbers as a holding mechanism for later expansion of the range when the population can be allowed to grow, biodiversity conservation objective of reducing the effect of the elephant population on the sand forest in Tembe is being achieved. Vegetation, animal and bird surveys are yet to be completed for exact results to be established, but it is clear that the sand forest is making a recovery from the damage caused by the elephants. So I think that there's not a real rehabilitation per se of the elephants. It's obviously a conservation initiative to protect this particular population of elephants, and hopefully in the future they'll be able to re-establish these migratory routes between South Africa and Mozambique. Right, so now that the elephants have moved off and the sky is getting darker, it's getting a bit scary, I think we'll move off and we'll head to the Madikwe Game Reserve and Africam Tau. With a couple of quite large crocodilians here on the edge of the waterhole. Good to see them out of the water. Often struggle to see them, but today they're nice and visible. So, a comment coming through from Lorraine, who was appreciating the information on the Tembe elephants. Thanks, Lorraine. Nice that you're enjoying it. So, and Joanne Mello saying that the crocs are her favorite. So glad we could show you. It's not every time that we get to see them here at Tau. And we often get questions around their coloration and why you have some that are darker, some that are lighter. There's a little bit of conflicting information regarding this, but it does come down to that a lot of reptiles are able to change their colors according to their thermoregulation requirements. So whether they're very hot and they've got enough energy from the sun, and they'll normally turn themselves a lighter color to enable reflection of the heat and not absorbing of it. And then the darker ones, it could also be, just at that stage and the particular requirements at the time that they are actually still absorbing the heat, as they are ectothermic organisms, and so getting their energy from external sources. So once they start turning a bit darker, they're trying to absorb more. And as they get that, then they can turn a bit lighter. But there is also that helps them for camouflage, of course. But generally, the juveniles of the Nile crocodile, which was the only species of crocodile that occurs in Africa, and the ones that we're viewing here, are gray. So the juveniles are gray, multicolored, or brown. And these two are not juvenile at all. They're fully grown. They can still grow more, but and they're both different colors. So it, for me, wouldn't be that one is really much younger than the other. They look of similar age, but they do have dark cross bands on the tail and body. The underbelly of young crocodiles is yellowish green. As they mature, Nile crocodiles become darker on the cross bands, especially those on the upper body. And a similar tendency in coloration change during maturation has been noted in species. So I think less so with other species, or should I say with the Nile crocodile, just changing because of the thermoregulation requirements, but they still do it. So in my mind, the difference in coloration here is just that these two individuals have got different thermoregulation requirements, and maybe the one in the foreground came out of the water later than the one that had probably been basking itself in the sun and already achieved the requirements for thermoregulation, and hence why it's turned a bit of a lighter color. Now, here's a couple of very interesting facts about the Nile crocodile. This is from Wikipedia, and they say that most morphological attributes of Nile crocodiles are typical of crocodilians as a whole. Like all crocodilians, for example, the Nile crocodile is a quadruped with 4 short splayed legs, a long, powerful tail, a scaly hide with rows of ossified scutes running down its back and tail, and powerful elongated jaws. Their skin has a number of poorly understood integumentary sense organs that may react to changes in water pressure, presumably allowing them to track prey movements in the water. Something I would think similar to the lateral line, like a lot of predatory fish, which are able to pick up vibrations in the water as well. And the Nile crocodile has fewer osteoderms on the belly, which are much more conspicuous on some of the more modestly sized crocodilians. The species, however, also has small oval osteoderms on the side of the body as well as the throat. And the Nile crocodile shares with all crocodilians a nictitating membrane to protect the eyes and lacrimal glands to cleanse its eyes with tears. The nostrils, eyes, and ears are situated on the top of the head, so the rest of the body can remain concealed under the water. They have a 4-chambered heart. Although modified for their ectothermic nature due to an elongated cardiac septum, physiologically similar to the heart of a bird, which is especially efficient at oxygenating their blood. As in all crocodilians, Nile crocodiles have exceptionally high levels of lactic acid in their blood, which allows them to sit motionless in water for up to 2 hours. Levels of lactic acid as high as they are in a crocodile would kill most vertebrates. However, exertion by crocodilians can lead to death due to increasing lactic acid levels, which in turn leads to failure of the animal's internal organs. This is rarely recorded in wild crocodiles, normally having been observed in cases where humans have mishandled crocodiles and put them through overly extended periods of physical struggling and stress. There's definitely nothing stressful about these two. And as I think we'll probably be able to come back here and see these crocodiles, I don't think they're going to be moving anywhere anytime soon. So let's move off, and this time let's head to Zimbabwe and Vic Falls. Completely different environment here. Few clouds around, but the sun is burning down, and we've got some marabou storks. They've probably just had their lunchtime meal at the lodge at the Vulture restaurant, and now come through here for a drink. Looks like there might be some white-faced ducks in the background there. Is that a grey heron off to the left? Can hear some guinea fowl calling. The Vulture also heading in for a drink there. So the marabou stork is part of the Ugly Five, and there's a nice little write-up by storyteller.travel. Speaking of facts about the ugly marabou stork, I suppose beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it is considered to be one of the ugliest animals on the planet. Beneath its homely exterior, the marabou stork is also one of the most fascinating birds found on Earth. We do call him the Undertaker because of its appearance. When seen from behind, marabou stork's backs and wings appear cloak-like. Its legs are skinny and white, and sometimes there's a white tuft of what appears to be hair on its head. It has a 12-foot wingspan, standing an average of 60 inches tall and weighing in at approximately 20 pounds. So what would that be? Just less than 10 kilograms. The marabou's wingspan of 12 feet is amongst the largest of any bird that is alive today, after the wandering albatross and great white pelican. And the female marabou stork is smaller than the male counterpart. Other than that, the male and female marabou stork look exactly alike and each have a large bill, a pink gular sac near the throat, and a neck ruff. So we're just getting a different view there. Same place, and we can just see there's a nice little group of kudu here as well, joining the marabou storks and the white-backed vulture. Looks like a hooded vulture there as well, off to the right of the... So native to tropical Africa, the marabou stork can be found in the wilds of Senegal, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Namibia, South Africa, and Uganda. And it can most often be spotted near wetlands or in semi-arid savannas in grasslands. Here's something interesting. Even though the marabou stork doesn't have a voice box, it can make some sound by using its throat pouch or by clattering its bills together. When it's making a social display, the marabou can produce a loud croaking sound by using its throat pouch, and it will clap its bill together to show it's feeling threatened. And we've seen that at the vulture restaurant, obviously trying to be intimidating, more so than being threatened, I think. There's also been reports of the marabou producing moos, whines, whistles, and even hiccups when courting and when feeling threatened as well. Marabou storks are drawn to grass fires, much like egrets are, like a moth to a flame. They fly ahead of the flames and swoop down on small animals that are fleeing the blaze. So a very opportunistic animal as well. Something ugly, something cool, but to cool down, the marabou stork squirts excrement on its legs, giving them their white appearance. But that's not the only way the marabou keeps cool in the African heat. Similar to many birds, the marabou stork also pants as a way to lower its body temperature when it gets too hot. To get warm, the marabou stork spreads out its wings to take in the warming rays of the sun. The marabou stork can also be called one of the laziest birds there is because it normally does not expend any energy unnecessarily. Well, why would you? The marabou stork spends most of its time simply standing around. Like many of its stork brothers and sisters, the marabou hunches over with its tarsi flat on the ground. The marabou is not an especially proficient flyer. Like other storks, it flies with its legs flowing out from behind its body, but that is where the similarity ends. Unlike their cousins, when in flight, the marabou tucks its neck in to form a flattened S, and this permits the weight of its beak to be borne on its shoulders, whereas other storks fly with their necks extended straight out. When they breed during dry season, when water levels are lower, meaning that birds and fish are easier to both find and catch, which is quite dissimilar from a lot of the other animals where they breed when the resources are at their maximum. And during the breeding season, marabous gather in groups ranging anywhere from 20 pairs to upwards of several thousand. And the male stakes out his territory and inflates his throat pouch when newcomers arrive. He will then pair up with a courting female who enters his territory and nest building begins. The pair usually mates for life and will construct their nest out of sticks on the side of a cliff, in a tree, or even on top of a building. 2 to 3 eggs will be laid in the nest with a 2 to 3 day between each laying. Both male and female marabou help to incubate the eggs. So that's a very good couple. It takes about a month for the eggs to hatch, and when they do, they're covered in a down that is grey colored. Both sexes will also tend to feed their young. Only one of the 3 chicks will make it to the fledged stage 13 to 15 weeks after they hatch. As we see these beautiful disruptive markings on these female kudu, those white stripes meant to break up the outline of their body when they're in their favored environment, which is in the thickets, in the bush. It's so difficult for the predators to make out and catch them, really. You can see that they are potentially performing geophagia here, where this lighter colored soil is next to this waterhole. There's probably mineral salts there. We do see this around a lot of the waterholes, where the animals go and lick the ground, getting in their supplements. So Russell was saying these colors are incredible. Would love to visit one day. Yeah. Well, if you haven't been to Victoria Falls, one of the natural wonders of the world, you definitely need to. As another white-backed vulture makes his way in, probably also finished its snack over at the lodge, at the vulture restaurant. So, just a request to please join our YouTube membership program. There's some great benefits, the best one being an ad-free stream that you can rewind and pause. You can go to our YouTube channel and click join to find out more. This is a really simple process, and if you're on DSTV, think about coming across to YouTube for an ad-free experience for a fraction of the cost. All relatively new smart TVs have the YouTube app, so I do say that it's probably a good idea. All right, so a nice stop in here with the undertakers and the vultures and the small family of kudu. And I think to change of ties, and let's head back to Tau. Where I'm pretty sure they've started to refill this waterhole. It was getting quite badly empty, and there seems to be quite a bit more water. And with that, we've got a lovely group of zebra that are bringing us all the stripes. So speaking of the natural wonders of the world a little bit earlier at Vic Falls, do you know what are the 7 natural wonders of the world? I'm going to tell you. Aurora, or the northern lights in the Earth's high latitude regions around the Arctic and Antarctic. The Grand Canyon, which is in Arizona in the United States. The Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Queensland, Australia. The harbour of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Mount Everest on the border of Nepal and China. Parucutan, the volcano located in the state of Michoacan, Mexico. And Victoria Falls on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. I do believe that they've now made it 8 natural wonders of the world, adding Niagara Falls in from the US. But this was the original. Victoria Falls being the largest and most water falling over any waterfall on the planet. Seems to be quite a little bit grey here at Tau Game Reserve. I really do hope they get some of the rain. This country needs it more than anywhere else, so that we can only hope. So Hannah was asking, is this where the crocodiles are? Are the zebbies in danger? Well, generally, Hannah, thanks for your question, firstly. And secondly, the way that the elephants were sort of the crocodiles were sort of out of the water like that, sunning themselves, generally means that they're not hunting. They're just sunning themselves. They've exposed themselves, and so they can be seen by all the prey species. These zebra aren't close to them. They're on the other side of the waterhole, per se, off to the left, where the crocodiles are probably about 50 meters or so away from them, at least. But like I say, with them being exposed like that, they're not going to be hunting. They just getting the energy required to potentially hunt. So once they go back in the water is when they become dangerous. So if I can see a crocodile, I'm happy. It's when I can't see them and I know that there are crocodile in the water that I get worried. So this is most likely also just one harem of zebra with one male and potentially a few females. They generally have, between 6 and 10 females in one harem. Anything more than that, and it's difficult for us to actually keep the females within the group because there will be other males trying to steal his female. So generally a manageable size, as I say, is between 6 and 10, but more so 6 or 7 is probably optimal. Anything more and he starts losing them to other males. You can also see that termite mound near to where these zebra are is nice and smooth. It's been rubbed by lots of animals. It could also be zebra, wildebeest, yellow, warthogs, all using it as a scratching post, I'm sure. So now you can see how far the crocodiles are from the zebra, and being exposed like that, as I mentioned, definitely no threat to those zebra at all. Just around and see what else is about. There's a couple of black-winged stilts just in the foreground there, feeding on the banks of this waterhole. Sounds like some red-billed buffalo weavers chatting away. There was a blacksmith lapwing there. Looks like a water thickening. Seems to be some Egyptian geese foraging in the water. A couple of Natal spurfowl now making a racket. Here's a little common moorhen. So a little bit quiet today, especially in terms of elephants. We've seen a lot of activity, especially around this time of the day. Maybe it's a little bit cooler here in these parts today, and so they're not being driven down to the water as much as they usually are. And once again, the little backspills calling here somewhere near to this camera. Very high pitched squeaky call. Alright, so you can see that kudu bull off in the bush line there, but he's not exposing himself. We'll keep an eye on him. I think it's time to change of place. Let's go to the Greater Kruger Park and Naledi Dam. I really like this waterhole, often having the elephants coming in to drink here, and the little pond on the right, and then having a lovely splash in the waterhole on the left. It's a bit quiet for now, but you never know. Alright, so now that it's a little bit quiet here, I think it's time for us to go and have a look at some of the highlights of the last 24 hours in this exact spot. So obviously during the night, the lions came to visit. And these females look like they're having a bit of a game. Youngster wanting to join in, and I think it's a little bit scared, would it be? And the adults are getting played out. What a lovely sighting this is. Lots of playful behavior. Another youngster, 2 adult females and a younger one. So, what a lovely little sighting that was overnight with the lions at Naledi Dam. But we've returned back to the Madikwe Game Reserve, and there's not much happening at Naledi for now, but we'll keep an eye on it. You never do know. I'm wondering where that kudu's moved off to. Aha, there he comes. What a specimen. Kudu generally like staying even just in the confines of the thickets and the bush. They prefer that. They're a lot more agile in that kind of environment, and they're not quite comfortable out in the open. They do prefer to be back in the thickets. And a great go-away bird calling again. So, and to me, this area around the waterhole showing signs of the likes of calcrete, quite similar to that of Etosha. So my thinking would be that historically, this is sedimentary rocks, if I'm not mistaken, and this could have been quite a big waterhole at some stage, and then lots of sediments, and sediments would turn into sedimentary rocks later. And so I think that there was a lot more water here at some stage in the distant past. So just slowly and gracefully walking, I think, to get towards the waterhole, where the water's a little bit deeper towards where the zebra were. And a little bit of sun about, just now shining on this kudu. Looks like he's found himself something to feed on there. There seems a bit of greenery. There has been a little bit of rain about in the recent past. Hasn't been anything major, but in this semi-arid environment, it reacts so quickly to any kind of moisture and little rain. So that's that new growth we're seeing. And now it looks like he might attack the termite mound. So Pink Ellie was saying, look how thick his neck is. Absolutely, he is a beast. And Lincoln 1800 saying, beautiful kudu. Absolutely, they are very gracious. And in my mind, some people would differ, but I would say second only to the gemsbok or the oryx. And the zebra in the background have a bit of a joust with their back legs kicking at each other. And Sandy Franklin 69 saying, oh, how cute. All of that and more, as the kudu now feels a little bit uncomfortable, as I suggested, being out in the open, maybe heading to where he feels a little bit better in the thickets. So it looks like there's a reasonably young foal there, just in the middle. I think was having a bit of a snooze a moment ago. And there go those Natal spurfowl once more. Not a very nice call. they do let us know that they're about. All right, so while these zebra are just slowly disappearing behind the dam wall, I think we'll take another little tour of the area, maybe see what's happening with the crocodiles. Are they still sunning themselves, or have they made their way into the water? The ever-present blacksmith lapwings. Looks like there's a three-banded plover and then a black-winged stilt. Now, as interesting as these crocodiles are, they're obviously not moving at all. They always look like they're smiling with their teeth exposed outside. But just behind them, you can see that little brown stalky plant. There's actually been quite a lot of it that I've seen on the banks of this waterhole just recently. They've got quite a big seed pod. And this is actually Datura stramonium. It's also known by the common names of thorn apple, Jimson weed, devil's snare, or even devil's trumpet. It's a poisonous flowering plant of the nightshade family. It's a species belonging to the Datura genus. Its likely origin is from Central America. It's been introduced into many world regions. It's an aggressive, invasive weed in temperate climates and tropical climates across the world, and it's been frequently employed in traditional medicine to treat a variety of ailments. It's also been used as a hallucinant of the anticholinergic, antimuscarinic type, taken entheogenically to cause intense sacred or occult visions. And it's unlikely ever to become a major drug of abuse owing to effects upon both mind and body, frequently perceived as being highly unpleasant, giving rise to a state of profound and long-lasting disorientation or delirium, with a potentially fatal outcome. So it contains tropane alkaloids, which are responsible for the psychoactive effects and may be severely toxic. Locally known in South Africa as mulpita, because of the war. They used to take it up on the Angolan border, and it literally used to drive some of the soldiers mad. So in Afrikaans, mul meaning mad, and pitta meaning seed, so it's the mad seed plant, as it is known locally. So Kelly H was asking, when they're resting like this, do they stop breathing? I wouldn't say that they stop altogether, Kelly H, but they will definitely not be breathing much. You know, crocodiles can hold their breath for 15 to 30 minutes at a time. And when they're not active, obviously their heart rate does reduce and they don't breathe much as well. So they can seem almost dead, but I promise you that's not the case, as one has just opened its eye now and had a look at us. All right, so these crocodiles still haven't moved anywhere, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So let's change of place and let's go right down to the tip of Africa and Stony Point. With a couple of the elephant's closest relative, the rock hyrax, or dussies, sunning themselves out on the rocks. Now, many guests and viewers are often astounded that this is in fact a relative of the elephant and one of the close relatives of the elephant. Beyond the realms of elephants, their family tree takes a surprising twist. There's two marine herbivores, the dugongs and the manatees, that share a remarkable kinship with elephants and are elephants' closest relatives. These aquatic mammals boast impressively lengthy lifespans of up to 70 years, employ prehensile lips, akin to an elephant's trunk, to forage on the sea floor. Moreover, the elephant family's most astonishing relatives can be found much closer in geographical terms to the African elephant. Enter the hyrax, a small mammal resembling a sizable guinea pig. These furry creatures diverged from elephants around the same era as dugongs and manatees, around 60 million years ago. Hyraxes are widespread across Africa, inhabiting trees and rocky outcrops. They share numerous striking similarities with their colossal cousins, from similar teeth and toe structures to skull shapes. And in a remarkable parallel, hyraxes have even developed small tusks stemming from their incisors. Both species exhibit internal testes, experience extended gestation periods, and boast highly developed long-term memory. So Jermaine was saying, that's a strange name, hyrax. It is indeed, Jermaine. And a lot of the Latin names or scientific names are quite strange until you look them up, and you see a lot of them derived from Latin or sometimes even from Greek. And that's in this case from the hyrax. It is actually from ancient Greek, hurax, which means a shrew mouse. So now we know why it's called that. And they often use these Greek or Latin names because it's very neutral across the world. And so there's not a fight whether to make it English, French, or any of the Germanic languages. Everybody's accepted that Latin is neutral. You may think that they're a rodent, and despite their similarity to rodents, they actually form a distinct, separate order of mammals. Complex developmental history, with many much larger forms representing their ancestors. And actually, when you look very close in on the foot of a hyrax, it's quite similar to that of an elephant. Doesn't look like the Cape Doctor is blowing today. It's southeasterly. It looks rather calm. Maybe these hyraxes are just hiding behind the rock and getting out of the wind, but it definitely doesn't look windy at all. The hyraxes actually have a lifespan between 9 and 14 years. It's quite an extended life. And there's a number of species recognized, 6 to be exact. The rock hyrax, which we see here, the yellow spotted rock hyrax, which both live on rocky outcrops, as the name suggests, including cliffs in Ethiopia and isolated granite outcrops, or koppies in southern Africa, and as we see here, even down on the rocks on the beach. The western tree hyrax, the southern tree hyrax, the eastern tree hyrax, and the Benin tree hyrax. But their distribution is all limited to Africa, except for the rock hyrax, which is also found in the Middle East. So from sleeping crocodiles to sleeping hyraxes, I think we'll try and find some action. So let's go back to the greater Kruger Park and Olifants River. Now, sleeping crocodiles, sleeping hyrax, and sleepy hippos. So it's a sleepy Tuesday afternoon. And that's obviously an indication of the temperature in the area. It's obviously a little bit cooler than normal, hence the hippos being out of the water, trying to warm up. Not very good at thermoregulating, hence the reason why they're in and out of the water, helping to externally assist with the regular problem. couple of oxpeckers on the back of the sleeping hippo, looking for those wounds. They don't generally have ticks on them, and so the oxpeckers come just to parasitize on the hippos. So you could say that generally the oxpeckers are actually parasites of hippos, and they do assist the other animals that they're on, from the giraffe to kudu and zebra and impala and the rest. Only when they do have an open wound will they keep it open, but generally just feeding on the ticks, being sanguinivores, and actually after the blood that the ticks have engorged themselves with. A little bit of a yawn there from this hippo. That was a yawn. That wasn't a display. And they really open their mouths and show off their tusks. Now, Busy Bee sent through a comment that's really interesting for me, referring back to the mulpitter that I was speaking of earlier, the datura or the devil's snares. And Busy Bee saying the devil's snare features in the first Harry Potter film. I'll actually have to go and have a look at that. Probably, I would think, around the hallucinogenic properties of that particular plant. Surely. So, and cheetahs and other animals saying this is the world's largest sleepover. Absolutely. You couldn't get much bigger than that. Is that a little youngster, or is it a rock next to this standing adult? I'm still not 100% sure, but I'm now leaning towards a rock. Very smooth rock, being next to the river. It would have been washed smooth by the water itself, but looked very much like a little hippo. I think it is indeed a rock, but I'm not... No, it isn't. It is a youngster. Now I can see the shape of its head looking straight at us. Little ears out the side. If that isn't a hippo, it's the most hippo-like rock I've ever seen. So we often get asked, what is the closest relative to a hippo? And if you look at whales, you might have a hard time figuring out where they fit into the mammalian family tree. And in fact, hippopotamuses are actually whales' closest cousins. They're much more closely related than you might guess. Based on their fossil records, scientists have determined that whales are related to land-dwelling mammals that lived on Earth between 52 and 47 million years ago. These early whales were well adapted to coastal habitats and over time were slowly able to transition to the fully marine whales we recognize today. The first whale that we know of doesn't really look anything like a whale at all. This first ancient whale's name is a Pakicetus, which lived entirely on land but was well much like dogs or bears. Interestingly, in 1859, Charles Darwin related a scene of a swimming bear catching insects in the water to that of a whale catching its food, and even alluded to the possibility of a bear-like creature being rendered by natural selection increasingly marine, eventually giving rise to something such as a whale. So the process of natural selection works over time to better animals' traits to their environments by having higher survival rates amongst the animals that have the more adaptive trait. Natural selection, however, can't act on a trait which doesn't already exist. A much smaller scale of natural selection can be seen in the coloration of deer mice in the sand hills of Nebraska. They develop two very distinct colors based on which environment they are living in within the same general area. Depending on the color of the soil where they live, they have adapted a color in which they are the most camouflaged from predators. The mice with dark coats has a better chance of survival on the dark soil, and the mice with the light-colored coats had a better chance of survival on the light soil, thus becoming two distinct populations. Within just 8,000 years, this change has already altered their DNA by a single gene. And the differences in these populations could grow to become even more distinct. So like with the deer mice of Nebraska, natural selection slowly shaped the ancient ancestors of whales to become increasingly adapted to their habitat. While Pakicetus was bear-like, Ambulocetus, with big feet, thicker thighs, and a tail more suitable for swimming, looked much like a furry alligator. Oopsie. What's startled this little youngster now? Woken him up. So this creature, the Ambulocetus, was still living on land, but was also quite comfortable and lived between 48 to 41 million years ago. Pakicetus, another ancient whale relative, was entirely marine, and it had a flat tail that it would have used to swim by moving up and down. Most strikingly, this animal's snout was elongated with its nostrils on top to allow its body to be mostly submerged while still able to breathe. Similarly, the creature's eyes were also located near the top of its head in order to see the shore while its body was underwater. And these adaptations are seen in a wide variety of aquatic and marine animals today as well. The Myocetus and the Durodon are two final examples that show us ancient whales fully adapted to marine life. Limbs separated from their spinal column, they were unable to support weight on land. Myocetus and Dorodon had ear bones much better adapted to hearing underwater, as well as teeth and jaws more adapted to gripping and slicing their prey. But what do all of these ancient creatures have in common with modern whales and hippos? So in the late 1700s first noticed similarities between whales and hippos through their reproductive organs, but thought they were identical. It wasn't until the 1980s when the skeleton of Pakicetus was first discovered, containing remnants of bones found only in whales, the Cetacea, and even-toed hoofed mammals, or the Artiodactyla, such as camels, pigs, and giraffe. And the ear bone in Pakicetus contains two unique features that are found in Cetacea and Artiodactyla: the involucrum and a sigmoid process, responsible for allowing whales to hear underwater. Pakicetus's skeleton also contained a uniquely shaped ankle bone containing a double pulley feature only seen elsewhere in even-toed hoofed mammals, but not found in odd-toed hoofed mammals such as horses or rhinos. More recently, modern science allowed for even further developments in this fantastic detective story. A DNA research study into the relationship between whales and even-toed hoofed mammals revealed they do in fact share similar gene sequences with the Artiodactyla. Furthermore, the DNA testing revealed that whales share a DNA sequence found only in one other animal, indicating that among all the non-whale mammals alive today, whales' closest living relatives are none other than the hippopotamus. The transformation of animals like Pakicetus into animals like Durodon is a truly phenomenal tale, as the process of natural selection took a mere 10 million years. Though that may seem like a very long time from a human perspective, it's virtually a blink of an eye in the history of our planet. For an animal that looks like a bear or wolf to give rise to something as dramatically different as a whale in such a comparatively short period of time is one of the most remarkable transformations witnessed in the fossil records. Natural selection was working in overdrive when it comes to whales and hippos. Right, so nice to see this little youngster here. Not nice to see him being startled, but nonetheless, he's gone back for a sleep. And he's not the only youngster that's been around this particular spot in the recent past. Let's go and look at some of the highlights of this area. Also at night, I think maybe on the other side of the river itself, a little baby with its roosting mom keeping her up, I think. Not going to get much sleep tonight. How cute is that? A very caring mom. And there she's drifting off back to sleep. Although she's trying to. Maybe that youngster's got colic. So we've left the Olifants River and the sleepy last night to today, being the hippos and the baboons overnight. And back here at Victoria Lodge, there's now a number of more marabou storks that have arrived. And you see this one, as I was speaking earlier, seemingly trying to warm up. Maybe it's been for a little bit of a bath in the water, so trying to dry its wings. But I would think that's an attempt to actually warm up. Maybe it's a little bit cooler here than it has been. And you can see what I was talking about, that 12-foot wingspan. They've got a huge wingspan, have the marabou storks. And there comes a little egret, and there's also a yellow-billed stork there as well. The Egyptian goose now, taking a bit of a bath, getting the water over its feathers. You can hear a helicopter in the background. This is one of the sort of tourist activities in the region. I think those helicopters work pretty much sunrise to sunset, taking guests over the falls and having a look at one of the 7 wonders of the world. I just heard now one of these marabou storks performing a bull snap. Oh, and here comes a kudu. It's a youngster. So there you can also see that incredible neck or gular sort of flap area on the marabou stork. And as mentioned, those helicopters are all part of the activities to see the Victoria Falls from, and they pretty much work from sunrise to sunset. There goes two. They're also taking to the sky. Yeah, he's started a trend. How many more are going to join? There goes another one thinking about it. No, not just yet. They do need a little bit of a runway. There we go. There's another. Off he goes. And there is a runway required both for takeoff and for landing. Another one coming in on the opposite bank. And that's something always to remember with big birds like this, vultures, marabou storks and the likes, and even big predatory birds, eagles, etc. On cold days, it's important not to, as far as you can, not to disturb them when they're roosting on top of sometimes dead trees, etc. Because they've got quite heavy bodies, they've got big bodies, and it's not as easy for them to fly as it is with little birds. They just take to the wing just by one little jump and off they go. Obviously with a much bigger weight, they have to expend a lot more energy, and so they prefer to fly when it's very hot, because then they catch the thermals and they just circle around in those thermals, and that's how they gain height. When it's cold, there aren't really any thermals, so they need to physically beat their wings, exerting a lot of energy and burning up a lot of calories to get up into the sky. So if you can help it, try not to disturb big predatory birds or the likes of big storks, secretary birds, and the rest, if you can help it, because you will then at least help them to conserve their very important energy that they have. You don't know when they're going to get their next meal. So with them burning off that energy just to get away from you, they might put themselves in a bad position. So if you are that kind of person, try not to chase the birds if you can. So Dark Mane Lover was saying, I love those wings. They are massive, aren't they? Dark Mane Lover, nice to have you on board once again. And Benji saying quite eerie with all those undertakers. Yeah, it's almost like we're at a funeral procession here. And Ants saying that must be where they carry the babies for delivery with that big neck. Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's white storks. I wouldn't like to be delivered as a baby by a marabou stork. I think that would bring with it a lot of omens, if you believe in that kind of thing. And Gail asking, will flocks only consist of their own kind? Gail, not well, their own species, yes, but not necessarily of their own family. For instance, you will have different groupings and couples of marabou storks joining up when they do fly, and so on. And they do come down for similar food sources, etc., when they know that something's there. So it's not necessarily always their own, but generally of the same species as well. But they also do join other predatory species, and the species all after a similar food source that stay in the same environment as well. So you can have these congregations of different species coming together too. There comes a kudu on the opposite bank. That's a bigger one that came past the camera a little bit earlier. So just a change of perspective, still at the exact same spot, but just a different camera. Now looking more down on these birds. We changed the other way around a little bit earlier. We went from up to down low, this time from down low to up top. All right, so here at one of the natural wonders of the world, we've enjoyed watching these marabou stalks, but I think we're going to head right back down into South Africa, down into the Eastern Cape and Lodge. With just the remnants of the clouds and the system that's now moved up into KwaZulu-Natal, this is what's left over of it, and just the back end of that system itself. So if you're wondering where this is, there's just a springbok walking through there in the background, which is probably the most eastern sort of natural populations of springbok here in these parts. From here into the Kruger and then all the way up into the northern Cape and then into Namibia. This is the real natural geographical populations of springbok. Otherwise it's too wet for them. So they don't do as well here as they may do in those drier parts. So anyway, this is between Gqeberha, the old Port Elizabeth, and Grahamstown, and hopefully we'll come here quite a lot more in the future. But that being said, I think let's head to King's Camp. There we've got a southern giraffe. Looks like a bull feeding off on the acacia thickets, now known as the Chilia. There seems to be some kind of little wind turbine off to the left of this giraffe, maybe helping to keep some of the electric wires or the little waterhole or whatever it is going. It's obviously turning some kind of turbine. Towards the end of the show, it's gone by in a... Really enjoyed today's show. It wasn't as active, especially from the elephant's perspective, but today was quite interesting from our side. Enjoyed it, and I hope you join us again once more tomorrow for another Live at the Waterhole. As always, we say thanks to the wildlife for being the stars. Without them, what would we be watching? And for you, the viewers, for joining us once more. Without you, there wouldn't be a show either. So then we get to the Wild Earth crew, and I have to say thanks to all of them as well, because without them there wouldn't be anything either. So the three of you, thank you so much, and we will see you again next time. Give it horns, bush greetings. Cheers for now, everybody.